In the next 6 weeks during our season of Lent, one of our purple seasons, we'll be moving from Ash Wednesday of last week to Easter Sunday, 6 weeks from today. And on the way, we'll be following Jesus from the Jordan River of his baptism into the wilderness, through his entire ministry, to the cross and beyond. A lot can happen in 6 weeks. A lot can happen during this Lenten season. A lot can happen in this faith community. And if as a community we truly engage our theme, 4th Street at prayer, perhaps a lot will happen. A little over a year ago, I preached from the story of the temptation of Jesus as it's written in the Lucan account. This morning's text from Matthew is very similar, yet a little bit different. The temptations come in a different order, conveying a different emphasis and perspective, but all three are there, pretty much the same as in Luke's gospel. What really intrigued me when I read this story in both gospels this time were the endings. At the end of the story in Luke, the devil departs from Jesus. Then the text says, waiting for an opportune time presumably to return, a better opportunity, probably at an unexpected time, planning to catch Jesus unawares. But in Matthew, the temptations end, the devil leaves, then suddenly angels come and care for Jesus. It's this difference that intrigues me, specifically the last half of the last verse of Matthew's version. But first, the background story. Right after Jesus is baptized and anointed as God's own, Spirit leads him into the wilderness where he will be tempted by evil. For 40 days and for 40 nights, he will be in the wilderness, or in biblical language, for a very long time, during which time Jesus fasts. Now, probably many of you have fasted for a short time, maybe for a medical procedure, and you know how hungry you can feel, maybe headachy and grumpy, not thinking quite as clearly as usual, possibly feeling even a little bit weak. If you ever have intentionally fasted by choice for some days, you know good feelings can result, along with perhaps new insights and perspectives, but you also can experience distracting discomfort, real weakness and depletion, leaving you vulnerable in many ways. And while it may be this vulnerability that leads to deeper perspective and broader understanding, this vulnerability can also leave you unprotected and more at risk. Jesus had fasted for a very long time here in the desert, in his own wilderness experience, in a rugged, rough place with some tough choices ahead. And taking maximum advantage of the situation at hand, the devil says to famished Jesus, if you really are God's own, turn these stones into bread. To which Jesus replies, we don't live by bread alone, but by the word, the power of God. Not to be discouraged, the devil tries again, taking Jesus to the very top of the Jerusalem temple. If you are God's own, throw yourself off the temple and prove that God will take care of you. Thwarting the devil yet again, Jesus said, don't test God. Persistently attempting one more time, the devil offers Jesus all the power on earth. If Jesus only will worship the devil instead of God, embracing evil instead of good. Jesus holds his ground, telling the devil, get away from me, I am going to worship God and serve God alone. Frustrated at every turn, the devil leaves Jesus. The ordeal, at least this ordeal, is over. And suddenly, angels come and attend to Jesus. They come and care for him. A lot of stuff happens during a life, and in the midst of this stuff, we can end up in the wilderness by many means. Just growing up requires us to navigate rough terrain at many stages of childhood, adolescence, and various ages of adulthood. Sometimes natural disasters, unfortunate circumstances and turns of events, systemic evil, the many difficult, life-shaking losses we all experience during our lives, our choices and actions, the choices and actions of others, or maybe just the way life is with its inevitable ups and downs, can result in us finding ourselves in the wilderness, pretty alone, facing what seem to be insurmountable odds. When traveling in the wilderness, no matter what stuff it is that got you there, often it seems that complications and trouble come one after another, after another, after another. They keep coming our way, sometimes at an unrelenting pace. It might be 40 days, it might be longer, but no matter how long it really is, it probably feels like a very long, long time. You may think your personal resources are depleted, and your personal resources truly, really might be depleted. You're not feeling the winds of the Spirit that led you here, and the light in the distance, the one that always leads you forward, may at best be flickering off and on, more off as time goes by. The inner voice that calms you and stills you, reassures you and energizes you, leading you forward, is not coming through, and the impenetrable silence is deafening. So often, it is at this opportune moment, at this point of great vulnerability, that the real challenges and temptations begin. Hardships of the wilderness threaten our trust in others, our trust in God, our trust in ourselves, our trust in most everything. We're standing on shaky ground, perhaps shaking to the core of our beings as we stand there, ready to turn and go back in the other direction, even if the place from whence we've come is really not so great, a place holding us captive, unable to discover our whole selves, unable to follow where God is leading, unable to believe the promises, the possibilities. We stand there knowing that the only real way is by way of the desert, the wilderness, the scary wilderness, where we must weave and wind our way through the thicket, or face the consuming dry desert with its overwhelming heat, no water in sight, or trudge over the frozen tundra, lost and cold to the core of our beings. The temptations are great. The temptation to turn back, losing sight of the goal up ahead. The temptation to stand still, just give up and let our spirit die. The temptation to move forward cunningly, connivingly, letting go of those things which kept us centered in the past, forgetting the one who led us here and who will lead us through, doing whatever it takes to survive, turn the stones into bread, focus on yourself, take whatever you need, grab at anything no matter what compromises or costs are along the way.